Whenever you're ready.
Whenever ready? Okay.
Yep.
So, a little just quick background on why we're here, and then why I'm not wearing that brand on my shirt right now. Is in this case, this is what we call a startup inside of a startup. But at this point, the InMotion brand and company, we've been a startup here in Virginia Beach for about 10 years. So at this point, we're past that. And we are about, I give this history. When we first started in Virginia Beach, so there's an office also in Los Angeles. But we came out here in 2005, and we had a 450 square foot office. Then about 3 years later, we had a 1,600 square foot office. Then another couple of years later after that, it was about a 6,000 square foot office. And a few years ago, we moved into an 18,000 square foot office. So it's out in Virginia Beach. We've got about 200 employees here in Virginia Beach. And it's mostly system administrators, technical support, designers, developers, a team of people who is actually working on this, so product development. And in this case, there's one opening that just opened up in the development department, by the way. So for somebody who's really into PHP, MySQL, even Python or anything that's really structured, knows a lot about databases, there's a good open role. And if you're relatively junior, it's okay. It starts at about 60,000 and goes up to about 85,000 a year. So anybody who might be interested in that position is open. So just, a little bit about me. So I've been all those roles that you might imagine inside of a hosting company. So we offer shared VPS, dedicated servers, and we really work mostly with 3 different groups. Do-it-yourself webmasters, then with web professionals, so people who are doing this for a living, that are creating sites, creating apps, creating back-end tools, and then also for large businesses who basically just need hosting for their application or site or whatever it might be, and they've got a big line item that we're spending money on. So So well, just one other thing, and there's roughly about 200,000 customers today. So it's been quite a trip. Those are the 2 brands that we currently market under from a hosting standpoint. Hub is a little bit smaller than InMotion and offers a subset of what InMotion Hosting offers. So that brings us to today. Is we've been incubating, I guess you could say, a new brand for, in my head, probably 3 years. A team has been working on it for, I guess, about 15 months, maybe now, Chuck, if that's 12 months? 12 months?
Right in about a year.
Yeah. So, counting, there was several stops and starts to what the product was prior to we actually putting it with a set of developers to actually build this thing. So that's something that we wanted to talk about today, but I know also just because I've been through a lot of this, the startup phases and being an entrepreneur and facing a lot of failures. That's one thing that I always still tell people is we fail a lot. And it's a good thing, right? Is you should fail because you're taking on something different or new, and that may not be a skill set that you have, but you try it and you fail at it, and then you get better at it. So the next time around when you got to do it again, you're more likely to be successful at it. And that's one of the things you just got to, don't be afraid to fail. You got to try it. It's going to break. And I was talking to this young gentleman before, and that's a trick, right? Is you get back in there, be passionate about it, and eventually you will get it right. Or you'll hit on a skill that maybe is applicable some other way that you didn't realize at the time. But there was definitely a lesson for us as to and why we actually ended up spawning off this kind of a startup within a startup, and it was because we were failing at something. So we mentioned that we've got about 200,000 customers, but currently the do-it-yourself webmasters that we have in our business are failing. So in this case, I'm going to borrow. I think this is where we are. So I need 6 people. So I'll give you an example of what's happening for us. So come on, I'll borrow the 6 people. It's not too bad. You don't have to be too crazy. But basically, our business functions and is successful if we have essentially the customer be successful. So my example essentially in this is all right, you guys get to all be excited about building your new website. Right? So everybody's excited, right? So okay, that's day 1. All right. So now in this case, you're trying to build a website, not a blog, but a website. Okay. So let's say the first day, you can sit down. This is what happens. He is like, oh man, this is not working for me. What's going on? What's wrong? This is not. And then I would say probably 2 or 3 days later, same thing, sit down. About a month later, you're down as well. 6 months in, you're done. And actually, in about 6 months, you guys keel over and just give up and quit. Because this really is what happens, is people get excited about being successful, but this is what's left. Is at the end of the year, we've got 2 out of 6, right? And as a hosting company, that means we failed in what we delivered to the customer, or we set expectations wrong and they chose a package or product that was wrong. And ultimately what it meant for us as a company is we were losing money. So, and actually we still are, because in that particular subgroup that was doing that. So you'd also say, you guys are still happy and you're paying us, thank you very much for doing that. And you guys, good luck next time, but we have a solution for you. So, and that takes us to this next one. Thank you guys. You're still, these guys are still happy. But ultimately, yeah, that was the lesson we learned, is that we weren't paying attention enough to that success metric. And really, our industry was changing away from general hosting, which we're very good at, and we provide a very, very stable and good product for what we call web professionals, the do-it-yourselfers, or not having a good time. So that takes us to just some concepts for you guys as you're looking out there at your businesses, and you're actually, I'm just kind of curious, out of the crowd, who is like starting businesses or looking at growing their business? Yeah, and from the other group, you're learning about what businesses are running in here, or what's kind of the interest level, what brought you guys here? Because I'll tailor this next part to maybe what you guys are most interested in. Okay. This one, so all right, on this side, basically this is a technique or tools that I use to be able to figure out what might be going on out there and be able to take advantages of changes. So like maybe for your guys' business, what are the keywords that are actually people are typing in? What's the trend that people are saying? And like in our case, we noticed things shift away from what we call web hosting. That's our primary keyword. That's the one that people would be typing in if they're interested in plain vanilla web hosting, and really started to shift over to website builders, create a website, start an online business, something, things of that nature. You can see this stuff. It's called Google Trends. If you guys have ever looked at that, it's really useful. You can see literally what people are typing in. It will give you that information back. Your particular business may have, in our case, we have this one called trends.builtwith.com, and that's very specific to the hosting industry. Then spotting trends is, it's always like you're going to know your field the best, and being able to, people always say this, oh, overnight success. There's no overnight success. It doesn't happen that way, right? Like you've done a whole set of work in order to build up to that expertise to be able to spot when something is becoming popular, or when you're seeing something that basically is difficult or is failing for people out there. It's the same thing. This is a technique that we use. Look at the competitors, look at what their customers are complaining about. That's going to tell you a lot about some of the things you don't want to do with your own product, or that you don't want to end up in that situation. And also, like in our case, we have one that it's web hosting talk, and people will flame on there, get very angry, and they let it go. You're going to see your own stuff up there where you're like, oh wow, we did that. Oops, okay. And it's really, that's a good it's a good experience. Actually, you'll learn from that and go, okay, let's not do that anymore. This I say to people too is, go to the trade shows, listen to the thought leaders. They'll often have tidbits of information that you use to really connect the dots for you on some other idea that you had, or maybe it's actually you find a partner there. That I can say for a really long-term successful business going through startups, you probably should have a partner. Somebody that you can get along with for a long time, because you might be doing that for a long time. But one person is very difficult to be successful in this type of stuff. At some point, you get so tired out, you give up and you go home and you don't answer the phone anymore. Those kind of things. So get a partner. Detail-oriented, we could skip. That's so in this case, then it was. Why did we actually choose it? And so Chuck is one of the group members that started up what we call BoldGrid, and BoldGrid is our answer to creating a website, but in this case we did it with WordPress. So how many people actually are familiar with WordPress? Right, did pretty decent. Okay. The issue, so the issue really that we ran into is, one is obviously we're watching these customers not renew. Okay, so we need to do this thing relatively quickly. So we formed a small subgroup, they move fast, and an advantage of that is when you bring a group together like that. In this case, it's really kind of like 7 or 8 people inside of 245 or so. There's the other office that's got the balance of people. is you basically, you can get the culture ingrained into the smaller group, and then as they become a really, really powerful and strong force for that culture, then you can kind of set them free on the rest of the organization, and they have, for better or worse, they will infect them with that same culture and that same approach. They're very, very proud of their product, as they should be. It's a good product, and it is answering a lot of questions for customers and helping them be successful. Yeah, and again, natural accountability. When you are that close to the product and you're working on it so much, you guys know that. When you like, in your case, this bike is going to work, right? Because you know that. You feel that that's your personal product. You put your time and energy into it. It's not about money in that case. It's your time and energy. You want to be proud of what it is. The small groups like that work great. I think maybe, yeah, if you could do the 30-second, and maybe we'll let it run in a little bit, because I know I got about 4 minutes, so we'll run a little bit of a video of what it is. It's not publicly available yet today, so you guys are actually one of the first public people to actually see it. You have both of them too? You have the... No, I'm on the phone. The product itself, again, is built to match up against Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, any of these website builders that are out there. But we chose to build it on WordPress because a huge portion of our customer base are web professionals, and they are using WordPress themselves when they're creating sites or creating applications. So we wanted to be sure that it's going to be a line that we walk no matter what, because we are definitely a do-it-yourselfer, and we supply those services. But what was happening is those people were going into Wix, Weebly, and Squarespace, moving away from WordPress, which then, in the long term, affects our other primary customer, the web professionals. That's not good for us no matter what, right? So we needed to have something that would appeal both to the do-it-yourselfers as well as to the real core of the web professionals. I don't know. Why don't we can cut? I'll be happy to show you guys what the system is if you want to see it, but I'm also happy we could stop and ask questions, or, yeah, sure.
So how is it better than SendGrid, the actual web builder?
How's it better than which one?
Than SendGrid or something like that?
Oh, maybe, are you talking the grid.io? Maybe that's a popular one that's out there? Or it's not actually out yet, they are taking...
Like, I know there's Squarespace, I think?
Yeah, Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, yeah. So Squarespace, of course, is closed source. You don't actually own your website, just for whoever might have who's actually running on Squarespace or running on Wix or Weebly. You actually literally don't even own your own content, just as an FYI on those things. So that's one of the problems with them, and you can't transfer out of it. Generally, you've got a lot of limitations with those. You can't truly customize down. In our case, this stuff is actually open source. So you can see Chuck is doing some modifications here behind me. And so that's one of the advantages too, right off the bat. For a web professional, you can use this just to speed up your own workflow. So that's one of the things that also, but it's still just like WordPress, it's open source, you can take it, do whatever you want to do to it, particularly if you have the technical chops. But we also use, to answer, I could say how, and I gotta say, with any product, it's never perfect, but what's really important with these types of products is you have a really solid feedback loop from the customer telling you this thing does work or that thing doesn't work. So in our case, yeah, we're really active about that.
So it's open source, are you monetizing anyone?
Well, in our case, we monetize it by you can only get this currently from InMotion or Web Hosting Hub, so we make the money off of the hosting side. It does have a built-in marketplace, but in our case, we will almost certainly, a really good friend of ours, I guess you could say, is a company called Envato. They do Theme Forest, Code Canyon, they do a couple of these. They have a really great marketplace. We'll probably just integrate with them and then take a percentage of it.
So is it an actual theme, or is it more like a bakery? Bakery, you have components on the back of WordPress.
Yeah.
So which one is more like bakery?
Actually, in this case, so it's a suite of plugins that provide different functionalities. They're standalone plugins, so if you have a particular set of functionality that you want, you can get just that plugin. But then it's also a suite of themes, and those are available. Some of them are free, some of them you've got to pay through a relationship like Envato, but you can make your own as well. And actually, you can upload if you build within the BoldGrid template system. Now it's not really a framework, but it's close to a framework. If you build within that framework, you can just stick it right into the system, and then you can use all the tools that actually exist for art. So it's a combo. We didn't choose it's common in the WordPress world to have like one super theme. The problem with that is not very friendly to the web professional. You are basically at that point, you're taking away from the web professional because they only need one theme. In our case, we want our core customer, the web professional, to be building lots of more themes and making money themselves to do it. So that's why we chose actually not to do it quite that way.
What's the pricing?
What's that?
What you said some of the plugins have pricing?
Not the plugins, but you can purchase plugins through them. In our case, everything is free, but you got to have hosting with us. Eventually, we may bring in some other partners, some other hosting companies, but then there'll be a rev share of some sort with them.
All right. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.